Right after Nagi's wonder goal, Chris has just declared that he will come onto the pitch, and he says that while looking super hyped, while Noah calls him a moron. Reichi can't believe his eyes as he wonders if Chris is serious. We then see New, who asks Chris if he's going to help his team in the final moment, and if he is going to mentor them from the pitch. Chris, however, just calls everything that New said nonsense. He says that the player who scores next will become the hero. After that, he takes off his shirt and says that he's going to score and then show off, just Chris being his regular self. Both Wanama and New think to themselves that he is such an egoist. After that, the announcer speaks up and says that he gets a yellow card for undressing on the field, and Chris just thinks and says that he is well aware. After that, we see most of Bastard Munchen's bench being in shock as they can't believe or take him seriously. Ryo then asks Chris what their formation is, and Chris says that they will go with a hyper-offensive system, explaining that he and Agi will play up front, while Nagi and Chigiri will play on the wings, and Ryo will slide in as an offensive midfielder. After that, Chris tells Nagi that it truly was a nice goal, but he then looks over to Ryo and says that he said that he wanted to become the best player in the world alone, and Chris asks him if he has given up on that ideal already. Ryo just looks confused, but Chris says that Blue Lock isn't this a place to create the world's best striker? Ryo, however, says that it doesn't matter, saying that his real dream is winning the World Cup anyway, explaining that he is fine with Nagi becoming the world's best striker and with Ryo being his right-hand man. He says that he has made his choice, and that for the sake of his dream, Blue Lock can be just a stepping stone. Chris then asks him if that is his new ideal. Ryo then gets fire in his eyes as he says that it's not his ideal, but instead his ego. After that, we overhear someone telling Chris that in the end, all he is thinking about is showing off. After that, we see that it's Noah who is also getting ready, and he straight up tells Chris that he has failed as a master. Chris then taunts him and asks if it isn't the world's #1, saying that he still hasn't forgotten about last year's Men's Player of the Year award, telling Noah that the votes decided the results and he ended up right behind Noah in second place, saying that if Noah wasn't there, he would have been first, and he calls it close. Noah just asks if it really was close and says that Chris got 201 votes, while he himself got 882 votes. Chris then screams at him and tells him not to point it out. Noah just continues and says that the gap between first and second was the largest in history. After that, Chris excuses himself for his little outburst, saying that Noah was so rude that he lost sight of himself. After that, Noah tells his team that he isn't going in as a striker, but instead as a defensive midfielder so that he can shut Chris down. Chris just laughs and says that he would like to see him try. Noah then looks mad as he tells Chris to back off and that this isn't his stage to shine. Chris then looks even more angry as he says that he really hates that part about Noah. We then, however, get to Isagi, who thinks that Chris and Noah are both subbing in, and that means that the field is changing. He thinks that he must sort out the situation so he can take over this match. He thinks back and says that, ever since he acquired Metavision, his abilities have all evolved exponentially. But even with all that, it wasn't enough to beat Kaiser, as his overall speed and body movement are slower than his, and above all, he doesn't have the Kaiser impact, explaining that even when he wants to use his direct shot, Kaiser can easily stop it because he has Metavision. That means that it's not enough to be on the same thinking that the final piece he needs in order to beat Kaiser is to have at least one thing where he can overcome him, saying that now that those two have come in, the game is going to be a hell of a lot different than before. However, if he can manage to accurately input and analyze the data coming from those two faster than anyone else, then he knows that he has a chance. We then move over to Yukimiya, who tells Noah and Chris to stop getting all fired up. He takes off his glasses and says that he hasn't done a single thing and that he has just run around. He says that his eyes are still fine, but that his vision is getting a little blurry. However, he quickly thinks that he can't be worried about that, as he hasn't stood out at all, and that he is just lucky that he didn't get subbed out just now. He then looks intense as he says that if this match ends like this, then he won't ever get another chance. He looks at the score and says that it's 2 versus 2 and 1 goal left. He knows that this is it. This is his last chance and that he needs to put his life on the line. We then get back to Isagi, who thinks that he has to meta this field faster than Kaiser. And after that, both him and Yukimiya at the same time says that they will be the one to steal the last goal. After that, we get to Noah, who tells them to listen up. He says that in this game, he is going to ally himself with whoever plays the most logically. Meanwhile, Chris tells his team that it's the last goal and that they are just going to watch him be the hero. However, he then starts to grin as he asks them if they will instead become the hero. After that, the announcer says that the game has entered its final stages. Whoever scores now wins the game, who will emerge as the hero, Is it the superstars or a dark horse? But with that said, we see that the game has just restarted with Kaiser passing the ball over to Ness. Isagi looks over and thinks that first he needs to take note of the current situation. With Chris and Noah playing these next 3 minutes, he can't just charge in and steal the ball like he has been doing, because if he do, it's obvious that Kaiser's gonna sabotage him like last time. Just then, he remembers Noah's words and thinks that he shouldn't even think about scoring on a fluke play. He tells himself to be calm, precise. In order to score the final goal, he gotta live up to Noah's expectations. After that, we see Ness being the GOAT as he destroys one of the Manshine defenders and then passes the ball back to Kaiser. Kaiser gets it flawlessly, but in front of him, it's Chris who tells him that he has heard the rumors, saying hello and greeting Kaiser as a New World 11 and asking Kaiser to show him what he is made of. Kaiser just tells him that he won't fall for such a childish trick and passes the ball over to Ness. Chris asks him if he is running away and says that he is disappointed. He tells Kaiser that he acts all high and mighty against weaker opponents, but he cowers in the face of someone stronger. After that, with an intense look, he asks Kaiser if he is a coward. This makes Kaiser super mad as he tells Ness to give him back the ball and says that he will send Chris to hell. Chris smiles and says that this is more like it, and then they go into a matchup. We see Kaiser, who is trying to get behind him with some stepovers, but Chris is managing to keep up. We then get to Isagi on the side, who calls it incredible. He says that Kaiser definitely kicked things up a gear, but that Chris is still easily able to keep up, explaining that both are attacking and defending without leaving even the tiniest gap, saying that it's impossible to interfere with this one-on-one duel. After that, Chris asks Kaiser what's wrong. He tells Kaiser to try and get past him, asking if he is unable to win by himself, finally getting on his nerves as he asks him if this is all that he got, the so-called New World 11. This makes Kaiser pissed off as he goes full force and tries to hit Chris with a double nutmeg, which leaves Isagi in shock. But still Chris is keeping up as he spins around and catches up, and Isagi wonders what is up with his ridiculous physical ability. Chris then says that he guesses that Kaiser is a small fry after all. However, we then see Noah, who is coming in to assist, and he asks Chris to look at who is talking. We then get to Isagi, who has his metavision out and says that Noah is so fast, saying that his eyes can see it, but that his body can't react fast enough. But just then, Ryo comes out of nowhere and kicks away the ball. This leaves Isagi in total awe as he thinks that he managed to beat everyone to the loose ball, wondering if his reflexes were on par with Noah's. He wonders how he can keep up with them in the first place, wondering if it's because of his pure physical ability, but Isagi knows that it's impossible with just that, and that's when it clicks as Isagi says that maybe subconsciously, Ryo is starting to use metavision as well. After that, we see Ryo aura farming a bit, before he screams out that it's the second ball. Just then, Chigiri is the one who gets to it first, and he compliments it by calling Ryo a billionaire chameleon. After that, his eyes start to light up with aura as he says that here it comes, his golden zone. With that said, he completely stomps on 3 of the bastard Munchen defenders, which is just mind-blowing. However, behind him, it's Isagi who says that Chigiri used a super speed inside cut, and that even though his vision is better than Chigiri's, in a one-on-one goal-scoring situation, Chigiri is already world-class. And we then get this awesome-looking panel with Chigiri running with all that he can, as the text says that the Red Panther bears his fangs. Anyway, back to Isagi, who says that this is bad, and that he is just about to get into his zone and then score. Chigiri then smirks as he says that this is game over, but just then, he gets shocked as none other than Yukimiya pulls up before him and tells him that it's time to defang and declaw him. Yukimiya looks intense as he tells Chigiri to pipe down and calls him a furball, which is super funny. Chigiri is just amazed that Yukimiya managed to keep up with his top speed all the way from the other side. After that, he taunts Yukimiya as he asks him if he wants to get devoured that badly. But we then move over to the golden boy Isagi, who compliments Yukimiya, and he thinks that Chigiri is now stopped. He tells himself to quickly assess the situation in front of the goal as the strikers have assembled. We then get back to Chigiri, who thinks that he is still a bit outside his range. However, he still knows that he just has to go for it as the winner will be decided in an instant. So firstly, he goes into a fake shooting stance, which catches Yukimiya off guard, and Chigiri then cuts inside and sees his perfect shooting angle, and he is just about to take home the win for Manshine City, when suddenly, Kaiser out of nowhere comes and bumps into him. He tells Chigiri that he was too slow and calls him redhead. Chigiri looks super shocked as he thinks that he took one touch too many. He thinks that he can't shoot, but he can still connect, which he does by passing the ball over to Chris, who has Noah by him. Anyway, Chris's aura is still radiating like crazy, as his eyes are just filled with pure determination as he says bravo. But just then, Noah comes before him and tells him that it's not good enough, telling Chris straight up that he is going to completely crush him. Chris just smiles and says that Noah is seriously cutting off his shooting angle and says that it's very textbook-like of him. Noah asks him if he is nuts, as there is nowhere for him to shoot. But Chris then starts to legitimately look manic, as he says that logically speaking he's right, but it would be suicide for him to fight Noah logically. But this is a movie that he created in order to surpass Noah, and he says that this is his new illogical weapon. And with that said, he decides to chip the ball over Noah, but that's far from everything, as when the ball is going towards Gagamaru, he notices that it's a knuckleball. Gagamaru doesn't know what to do, as it's so fast and it's randomly wobbling like crazy. Chris then screams at the ball to go, calling it the world's most random shot, explaining that even he doesn't know where it's going, and he calls it his unstoppable knuckleball. Gagamaru is trying to think about every possible solution that he possibly can, but in the end, he says that there is no way that he can stop this. But just then, he spots Isagi running towards him with all that he can. Gagamaru notices that he isn't even looking at the ball, but after that, he looks towards Gagamaru and tells him to go low. Gagamaru says that he is on it. After that, we see their teamwork being awesome, as when Gagamaru takes low, Isagi takes high, and with that strategy, they are able to deflect the ball. Literally, no one is able to believe their eyes, and Reichi calls it an all-or-nothing body wall, but the one who is the most shocked is Chris, who pulls this super funny face as he can't believe what just happened. After that, Isagi falls onto the floor, but he thinks that he was able to see it clearly. He thinks that even though it's impossible to read the shot's trajectory, he could still read which point was the most vulnerable, and if he could just defend that spot, he does admit that it was a huge gamble, but that it paid off. He then looks super fired up as he says that he has now devoured the world's number 2, and with that, he looks ecstatic as he says that now it's his turn.